are watching the Ben Hardeveld Show, weeknights on BBB.
Hello everyone, we've got a very special program for you tonight. The information about to be released is going to affect you, the listener, differently depending on who you are and your background on the subject. It may finally be the epiphany that you needed so that you could truly understand the roots of white privilege in this country. It may further your education on the inequalities and injustices that black people have gone through in the nation. You know what, hell, it might just be a white guy telling you things you already know, but it is my hope that you leave with a better understanding of the systematic racist beliefs and social contracts that were used to build this nation that we lived in today. Stick around. Alright, let's jump back to the 1930s. It's the Depression, it's in full effect, it's horrible. Hoover's president, failing miserably. FDR steps up just in time. He's great. He wants to bring the country to economic relief. What does he do? Brings the New Deal. This is the first time a progressive motive has been used to form legislation to bring the country out of depression. And you know what? At a time when a quarter of Americans were unemployed, this was great. The CCC brought tons of jobs. The WPA helped in that. It also brought ideas like Social Security and Medicaid. Like, who doesn't love that? And you know, I bet if you ask someone, who's your favorite president, they will say FDR. But they would quickly change their answer once we've gone into a bit of a deeper look into what the New Deal is. Yes, it helped a ton of people. I will not say that. But the ignorance that a majority of liberals have in this country is that they've let the impressive progressive agenda that helped a ton of white people in this country blind them to the inequalities of the New Deal. You'll see as we get further into this that there are tons of Jim Crow influences that have taken control of this incredible thing. So we'll start the National Housing Act, which was created in the 1930s, brought the 30-year mortgage and low fixed interest rates, and the Homeowners Loan Corporation, which was one of the programs in the New Deal, and this is where it started 80 years ago. They were responsible for creating residential security maps, and I'm looking at one of them right now. It's from Macon, Georgia. It's very, I don't know how to describe it, but it's blocky, different colors. There are 4 different colors, and in the key it says that green, it's one of the best places to live, top of society. Next is blue, middle class middle class families. Next is yellow, which is the meh of the group, and red is the lowest one, which is the worst, and it was defined as low class, detrimental influences, and hazardous. When you look at who is living here, you find that it is mainly black people, immigrants, and minorities. This is where the term redlining came from. Being in one of these red line zones made it impossible for people to buy and sell property. The Federal Housing Administration, which was part of the New Deal as well, was in charge and in control of mortgages and loans and protecting American families from defaulting on their mortgages. So, the problem in this is that because black people had different color skin than white people, they weren't being given loans. So they could not move out of their red line districts. When a bank saw that you were in a red-lined neighborhood or county, you just were there was no chance you were getting a loan. The FHA actually, in this 30-year period, was exclusively giving white people loans. They just did not care about black people. So by doing this, black people were locked in where they were living, and they were basically kicked out of the homeownership industry, which we'll get into a bit later. Now I'm going to quote the Washington Post. They say, homeownership is the number one method of accumulating wealth, but the effect of policies that created more hurdles for the poor and permanent underclass made it disproportionately a minority who was affected. Okay, so now we have neighborhoods where people are suffering and the government is backing racist policies. Great, we haven't heard that before. Sarcasm. It's the ideas that the age of slavery that have somehow lived on, the social system between slaves and masters, continues to affect our nations in the 1930s. The idea that white people are above black people on all fronts, the idea that the white man must go first. The white people wanted to continue this notion of white wealth, even if it meant that they had to cheat the system, just keep black people out of the way. White people wanted better schools, better jobs, better houses, better communities, of course. Simplest way to do this, trap black people. Keep them out, don't let them in, as our president has quoted today. It was all fueled by this idea that white wealth cannot exist with black poverty. So it was specifically designed to keep black people out. Yes, of course, the value of homes did fall when black people moved into white neighborhoods. It was part of the effort to keep them out. I don't know many times I have to say that, but okay, so redlining's horrible and its roots track all the way back to the antebellum South. It's over 80 years later, and the effects of redlining are still prevalent. We'll start with the economy. Look at our economy. Who has the wealth in this nation? And do not lie to yourself, because we are in Maplewood and it may seem like the wealth is distributed evenly, but in fact it is not. The housing market of the 20th century created the wealth gap. Industry of buying and selling homes raised capital among white families, while black families were excluded because redlining, and they couldn't get involved in the biggest financial investment ever. The real estate industry believes segregation to be a moral principle. In fact, the federal government embraced discriminatory attitudes in the marketplace. They didn't just move wealth, it created neighborhood demographics that have yet to change over 80 years. As wealth increased in certain neighborhoods, their property taxes increased as well. This is the next point. Property taxes are used mainly to fund education. This is schools, their facilities, their teachers. This means the higher valued neighborhoods, the white ones, had better schools, better teachers, better facilities, and better opportunities. So neighborhoods are segregated by their wealth, and the education system is now segregated as well, and the opportunity that is given to children who are already in different neighborhoods. So the white kids are getting better educations than the black kids. So obviously the white kids are going to go to better colleges and become more successful. The next category is opportunity. So when property value goes down, so does business, and when business leaves, so do jobs. And without jobs, people can't provide for their families. So the only way to pay bills is, here comes the stereotype, drugs. Of course, because it's obviously pays more to drug deal than pump gas, right? And this is kind of the next area, the social area of the effects of redlining, the stereotypes that have built on the fact that people were excluded from this incredible opportunity. The racist morals of the antebellum, they just advance these ideas that black people, they live in rundown ghettos, and it's just the idea that they are lazy. And hell yeah, they're lazy because there's no work. They can't find a way to get out of the same block of 10 houses that they were born in. Even when people tried to leave, they fell back down. And Chicago, let's just go to Chicago as an example. The communities surround it, they are the most segregated in the world, and people cannot leave. They cannot find opportunity, even in the bustling city of Chicago today, in the 21st century. It all begins to connect after a while when you realize that redlining created the income gap between white and black families. You begin to understand why you don't see more black people in higher up jobs. You understand why it took so long for a black person to become president. White people 80 years ago put up the walls that kept black people and minorities out, and the walls still exist and they still keep people out. You finally understand redlining is the root of this, and I'm going to quote, "Without the money you can't move, you can't educate your kids, you can't give them the right of food, you can't give them make their house look good. They think this neighborhood is where they're supposed to be, and it changes their outlook on life." Close your eyes and think about our town now. Look at Maplewood. We may be one town, but we are separated into different neighborhoods. It's no accident. Why do you think it's called Maplewood, Maplewood? I learned that in middle school. I didn't know what it meant, but now I start to fully understand it. I'm looking at a map of Essex County made 80 years ago. It shows Maplewood and the train tracks and Springfield, and you know what? The areas near Milburn are the blue and green ones, and the ones after the train tracks near Springfield are the yellow ones. So think about Maplewood now, and what does it look like then, and what does it look like today? It's the same thing. They described it as presence of Negroes and foreign families. It's shocking that these maps created 80 years ago are still defining our town, our Maplewood that we call a bubble, that's not affected by the rest of the world. Well, I hate to break it to you, we are affected by it, and something's got to happen. As we move forward, we need to start understanding what can be done to undo this evil that's cast upon North Lawndale in Illinois, and Macon, Georgia, and in our town. The term reparation comes up very often when you talk about repaying those who have suffered so greatly. Americans are ashamed of what happened in the past. They're so ashamed that we've decided it's better to ignore it than dig up the old ideas that will just stir trouble. That's unjust. Reparations have been called many things. Sum of money that so large it would send the world into economic catastrophe. Ta-Nehisi Coates, I'm going to quote him now. He says, "Reparations beckon us to reject the intoxication of hubris and see America as it is, the work of fallible human." Reparations are not a thing. They are an idea, a reflection on the past and how it's still controlling us today. We pretend to live in an integrated society, but the power of white guilt is keeping the racist ideas alive. Quoting him one more time, "What is needed is a healing of the American psyche, a settling of old ghosts and banishment of white guilt. America needs to stop, open a book, or a map, and reflect on who we are and who we want to be. The America we live in today turns a blind eye towards capitalism and lets racism in the government just proceed without any consequences. We need to come to accept and learn from our sins of the past and see that they are still controlling us today, and we need to construct a new world where they do not become the sins of our future. We are a world where immigrants came for an equal opportunity of success, and that is not a promise that is being fulfilled." All right. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you for tuning in. I hope to see you next week. Have a great night. Bye.